I never thought the day would come when my own daughter-in-law would try to steal my life, my home, and my future, but here we are. It was a betrayal so profound, so meticulously planned, that it still leaves me breathless when I think of it. Yet in that very betrayal, I found a strength I never knew I possessed, a fierce resolve that would not only protect me, but ultimately unravel her entire twisted scheme, ensuring that justice, cold and unyielding, would be served. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. My name is Margaret Collins, though most people call me Maggie. For 52 years, I'd lived a life I was proud of. I was a widow, yes, having lost my beloved husband Thomas 5 years prior, but I'd built a good, stable life for myself. I'd worked hard as a school administrator for over 30 years, saving diligently, and thanks to some smart investments Thomas had made, I had a comfortable inheritance, enough to live out my golden years without a worry. My two greatest joys were my son, Kevin, a kind and dedicated middle school math teacher, and my two beautiful grandchildren, Emma, who was 8, and little Tyler, 5. They were the light of my life, the reason I got up every morning, and the thought of them filled my days with warmth. My home, a cozy 3-bedroom in a quiet suburban neighborhood, was often filled with the sound of their laughter, a testament to the family I cherished so deeply. It was a sanctuary, a place of peace and love. I always imagined passing it down to Kevin, a legacy for him and the children. Carla, my daughter-in-law, had always been different. She was a pediatric nurse, and on the surface, she seemed competent, even charming. But there was an underlying current to her, a subtle, calculating glint in her eyes that I could never quite shake. I tried to dismiss it, to tell myself I was being overly cautious, a mother's protective instinct perhaps, but deep down, a quiet unease always lingered. She had married Kevin 5 years ago, just a year after Thomas passed, and I remembered her asking rather pointed questions about my financial situation, my retirement plans, and even, disturbingly, the specifics of Thomas's will. I, being naive and trusting, had chalked it up to curiosity, perhaps even a young woman's natural concern for her new family. But I would soon learn just how wrong I was, how those seemingly innocent questions were the first bricks in a prison she was building for me. Her goal, I would discover, was the entire $300,000 inheritance I had worked my entire life for, and my home, my sanctuary. She wanted it all. The initial tremors of her deceit began subtly. Little comments to Kevin about my memory, jokes about me misplacing my keys, or forgetting an appointment. I noticed them, but brushed them aside. Then came the whispers, reaching me through Emma. My sweet granddaughter, with her innocent eyes, once told me, "Mommy says you forget things a lot, Grandma," like when you told her you already mailed the birthday card, but she found it on the counter. My heart ached. I knew I had mailed that card. These were small things, but they were chipping away, creating tiny cracks in my reality. I started writing things down, not for memory, but for proof. I wrote down every conversation, every interaction, every time Carla made one of her concerned remarks. The turning point came when Emma confided in me that Carla had explicitly told her not to mention certain things to me, because Grandma gets confused easily. That was it. That wasn't just gaslighting me. She was weaponizing my grandchildren, poisoning their minds against me. In that moment, the loving, trusting mother and grandmother transformed. The shock and hurt were still there, a raw wound, but beneath it, something cold and resolute began to form. I was no longer a victim. I was a strategist. I needed evidence, irrefutable proof, and I needed it now. The very next day, I went out and purchased a small, high-quality digital voice recorder. I spent hours reading the manual, testing it, making sure I understood every feature. I learned how to activate it quickly, silently, and how to store the files securely. From that day on, for 2 grueling months, that tiny device became my constant companion. It was tucked into my pocket, hidden in my purse, or placed strategically on my coffee table, ready to capture every manipulative word Carla uttered. Each recording was a dagger to my heart, confirming my worst fears. I heard her telling Kevin that I was rambling, unfocused, that I had sudden mood swings. I heard her call a geriatric psychiatrist, pretending to be worried, fabricating stories about my decline, and even making false reports, clearly researching guardianship laws, all to paint a picture of an unstable woman, ready to be declared incompetent. I felt a chill run down my spine every time I listened, realizing the depth of her malevolence. I wasn't just documenting. I was meticulously building a case against my own daughter-in-law, a task that tore at my soul but strengthened my resolve. I didn't stop there. I started a dedicated notebook, logging dates, times, and specific instances of Carla's manipulations. I noted down every lie, every exaggerated concern, every attempt to alienate me from Kevin and the children. I became a ghost in my own home, observing, documenting, and preparing. I visited my doctor, a kind and understanding woman, for a full cognitive assessment, making sure I had a clean bill of mental health to counter any of Carla's fabricated claims. I quietly started consolidating my finances, ensuring all my legal documents, deeds, wills, investment statements were secure and inaccessible to anyone but myself. I even consulted with a lawyer, a family friend, explaining a hypothetical situation, not revealing names, but outlining the kind of scheme Carla was orchestrating. He gave me invaluable advice on how to protect myself, how to ensure my legal standing was unassailable. I wasn't just reacting. I was systematically dismantling Carla's plan before she could even finish building it. The tension in my home became suffocating. Carla, emboldened by her perceived success in gaslighting Kevin, grew bolder. She began to manage my schedule, reminding me of appointments I hadn't made or canceling ones I had. She even went as far as to suggest I shouldn't be driving anymore, citing a minor fender bender I'd had years ago, long before she even knew Kevin. Her ultimate goal was to completely isolate me, to sever my ties with anyone who might notice her machinations. She'd even tried to dissuade me from going to my usual bridge club, saying the stimulation might be too much for me. I just smiled, politely declined her help, and continued my life as normal, all the while knowing the recordings were capturing every word, every patronizing suggestion. Then came the day her carefully constructed house of cards began to tumble. I was in my living room, peacefully reading, when I heard a knock at the door. I opened it to find Officer Daniel Martinez, a young, polite officer from our local precinct, standing on my porch. My heart sank, but I had been expecting this. Carla, it seemed, had finally made her move. "Mrs. Collins?" he asked, a professional but slightly concerned look on his face. "We received a call from your daughter-in-law, Carla Collins. She expressed concerns about your well-being, suggesting you might be experiencing some cognitive difficulties and acting erratically." I nodded slowly, maintaining a calm demeanor that belied the fury bubbling within me. "Yes, Officer Martinez, I had a feeling she might. Please, come in." He entered, his eyes scanning the tidy living room, clearly assessing the situation. He began asking me a series of routine questions, observing my responses, my body language. I answered clearly, calmly, confidently. "Mrs. Collins, Carla mentioned you might have some issues with memory, perhaps even some instances of paranoia. Is there anything you'd like to share about that?" This was my moment. "Officer Martinez," I said, meeting his gaze directly, "I understand her concerns, or rather the concerns she claims to have, but I assure you my mental faculties are perfectly sound. In fact, I've been quite busy lately, and not just with my garden." I paused, then continued. "For the past 2 months, ever since I became aware of Carla's rather alarming plans, I've been secretly recording our conversations." The officer's eyes widened slightly. "Recording, Mrs. Collins?" he asked, a hint of surprise in his voice. "Yes," I confirmed, "and I believe these recordings will paint a very different picture of my mental state, and, more accurately, of Carla's intentions." I retrieved my small digital recorder from its hiding place in my pocket. "I can play them for you right now if you'd like." Before he could answer, the front door burst open, and in rushed my son, Kevin, his face pale and distraught. "Mom? Officer Martinez? What's going on?" "Carla called me. She said you were having some kind of episode, that I needed to come here right away." Carla, it seemed, had been orchestrating a grand performance. I looked at Kevin, my heart aching for the anguish etched on his face. He was truly caught in the middle, a kind man manipulated by a conniving woman. "Kevin," I said softly, "Carla has been fabricating a story about my mental health. She's been trying to have me declared incompetent so she can gain control of my inheritance. I have proof." I then looked at Officer Martinez. Perhaps it would be best if Kevin heard these as well. I pressed play. The first clip was Carla's voice, clear as a bell, talking to someone on the phone. "Yes, doctor. She's become quite paranoid. She keeps saying people are trying to steal from her. I'm really worried she's a danger to herself, maybe even the children, if she's left alone with them." The next clip, her speaking to Kevin. "Your mother seems to be forgetting things more often, honey. Just last week, she left the stove on for hours. It's scary." And then, the most chilling, Carla talking to her sister. "Honestly, the old hag is still too sharp, but I'm making progress. Once she's deemed unfit, that $300,000 is ours, and this house is perfect for the kids. Just need to keep feeding Kevin the narrative." Kevin stood there, aghast, his face draining of color. He looked from me to the recorder, then at Officer Martinez, his world crumbling before his eyes. "Carla, no, she wouldn't," he stammered, disbelief warring with the undeniable truth emanating from the small device. Just as he was struggling to process this, Carla herself walked in, radiating false concern. She'd clearly been waiting outside, timing her entrance for maximum dramatic effect. "Oh, Maggie, what have you done now?" "Kevin, darling, is she acting out again? You see, officer, this is what I was talking about. She gets these delusions, these paranoid fantasies." She tried to snatch the recorder from my hand, but I pulled it away. "Carla, enough," I said, my voice steady, betraying no hint of my inner turmoil. "Your performance is over." Carla, however, was not easily deterred. "She's just making things up, officer. Her mind is going. She probably edited those recordings to sound like that. She's obsessed with me. It's a clear sign of paranoia." She then gestured wildly. "In fact, I've been documenting her erratic behavior myself. I have recordings that prove she's the one who's unstable and irrational." She reached into her purse, pulling out a small, almost identical digital recorder. It was a bold move, a desperate attempt to discredit me. But I was ready. I smiled, a small, knowing smile that chilled her to the bone. "Oh, Carla," I said, "that's a clever twist. But you see, while you've been busy editing your little evidence, I've been doing some real investigating." I walked over to a small antique side table by the couch. "Funny you should mention your Tantra recordings. Because while I was cleaning a few days ago, I found this, tucked away here, quite cleverly hidden, I might add. It looks remarkably like yours, doesn't it?" I picked up another small recorder, this one slightly different in model, but clearly a recording device. And after a quick check, I found that this one, which I believe is yours, has been active, and it contains something rather interesting, multiple audio files. Not just of my supposed rants, but also the raw, unedited conversations you then painstakingly manipulated and edited on your other device to twist my words and create your false narrative. It also contains your search history for guardianship laws and elder abuse definition and how to fake mental illness. The color drained from Carla's face. Her eyes darted around, panicked. Kevin stared at her, his jaw slack. "And that's not all, Officer Martinez," I continued, my voice unwavering. "Carla, as a pediatric nurse, illegally accessed my private medical records. I have documentation from the hospital confirming this unauthorized access. She also filed false professional reports, using her credentials to lend weight to her fabricated stories about my mental decline. I have copies of those reports. and a formal complaint has already been filed with the State Board of Nursing. I pulled out a carefully organized folder, brimming with printed emails, screenshots, and official documents, placing them on the coffee table. Here are the timestamps of her accessing my records, the false report she filed, and the formal complaint already initiated with the board. Carla crumbled. The bravado evaporated, replaced by raw, ugly fear. She began to cry, but there were no tears, just harsh, ragged sobs. "It's not fair, you have so much. I needed money. Kevin never made enough. I married him for his inheritance. I just wanted a better life for my kids." The words tumbled out, a confession born of pure desperation and an astounding lack of remorse. The mask was completely off. She admitted to marrying Kevin purely for financial gain, admitting she'd accelerated her scheme when I, to her frustration, remained healthy and independent. Officer Martinez, who had been quietly observing and listening, stepped forward. His expression was grim. "Carla Collins, you are under arrest for multiple felonies, including fraud, elder abuse, computer fraud, for accessing unauthorized medical records, and conspiracy to commit fraud. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." As he read her rights, Carla continued to sob, but her eyes, meeting mine for a fleeting moment, held not remorse, but pure, unadulterated hatred. Kevin stood frozen, a statue of grief and disbelief. He had just heard his wife admit she married him for money, that she had systematically tried to destroy his mother, and then saw her led away in handcuffs. The silence that followed her departure was deafening, broken only by Kevin's quiet, heartbroken sobs. The initial shock of Carla's arrest was quickly followed by a new wave of fear. From jail, in a final, desperate act of malice, Carla filed a false Child Protective Services report against Kevin, accusing him of domestic violence and mental instability, claiming he was a danger to Emma and Tyler. My grandchildren. My blood ran cold. This wasn't just about my money anymore. It was about the safety and well-being of my innocent grandchildren, the very reason I had fought so hard. But in that moment, fear transformed into absolute, unyielding fury. I refused to be a victim, not anymore. This time, I would not only fight back, I would go on the offensive. I immediately contacted Detective Sarah Chen, the lead detective assigned to Carla's case. I explained Carla's latest maneuver, emphasizing the malicious intent behind the false CPS report and the immediate danger it posed to Kevin's reputation and the children's emotional stability. Detective Chen assured me she would intervene, but I knew I needed to do more. I needed to expose Carla's web of lies to the light, to make it impossible for anyone to believe her. I made a phone call that would change everything. I called Channel 7 News, specifically asking for their investigative journalist, Amanda Rodriguez. I told her I had a story of calculated familial betrayal, elder abuse, and a desperate attempt to destroy an innocent family. Amanda was intrigued. Within hours, she and her camera crew were at my home. I sat down in my living room, the same place where Carla had tried to tear my life apart, and told my story. I played the recordings, showed them the meticulous notes, the false medical reports, the evidence of Carla's illegal access to my records, and the CPS report. I spoke calmly, clearly, my voice resolute, explaining how Carla, a pediatric nurse, had weaponized her professional knowledge to exploit her own mother-in-law for financial gain. I spoke of Kevin's heartbreak, of Emma and Tyler's innocence, and the urgent need to protect them from this malicious scheme. The interview aired that evening. The public outcry was immediate and overwhelming. People were horrified. My phone rang off the hook with messages of support. Dr. Patricia Williams, the head of the local Child Protective Services Department, called Kevin the very next morning. She had seen the news report, spoken with Detective Chen, and expressed her sincere apologies, stating that the false CPS investigation against him was being immediately closed. Carla's last, most vicious attack had backfired spectacularly, not only failing to harm Kevin, but ensuring her own downfall. Faced with the overwhelming public sentiment and the mounting evidence, Carla was denied bail. 3 weeks later, her legal team, realizing the futility of fighting such irrefutable proof and her public humiliation, urged her to accept a plea deal. She did, receiving a 7-year prison sentence for computer fraud, filing false medical reports, elder abuse, and conspiracy. Even then, through her lawyer, she maintained her innocence, clinging to her victimhood, a chilling testament to her unremorseful nature. With Carla finally behind bars, a profound sense of peace began to settle over my home. The silence that had once been heavy with tension was now truly peaceful. The immediate legal battle was over, but the real work of healing our family was just beginning. Kevin, my dear son, immediately initiated divorce proceedings. It was a painful, heartbreaking process for him, but he knew it was the only way to truly reclaim his life and protect our family. He often came to me, burdened with guilt and regret, wondering how he could have been so blind, so easily manipulated. I assured him it wasn't his fault. Carla was a master manipulator, and she had preyed on his kind, trusting nature. We spent countless hours talking, rebuilding the trust that Carla had tried so hard to shatter, rediscovering the strong bond that had always defined us. Emma and Tyler, though too young to fully grasp the enormity of what had happened, felt the shift. Their home was calmer, their father less stressed, and their grandmother, though a little more battle-hardened, was more present than ever. I, too, began to heal. The weight of suspicion, the fear of what Carla would do next, was finally lifted. I reclaimed my peaceful life, but it was a life transformed. I couldn't simply go back to being the carefree Maggie I once was. The experience had opened my eyes to the insidious reality of elder financial abuse, how easily vulnerable individuals, even those who felt strong, could be targeted. I decided I wouldn't let my pain be in vain. I started writing. What began as notes to myself transformed into a comprehensive guide, sharing my story, detailing the warning signs, and outlining the meticulous steps I took to protect myself. It was a guide for other victims, a roadmap to resilience, a testament to the power of documentation and courage. I found a new purpose, a new passion, advocating for those who might not have the voice or the resources to fight back. My home, my sanctuary, truly felt like mine again. The laughter of my grandchildren echoed through its halls once more, untainted by malice. Kevin and I, though scarred, emerged stronger, our family bond forged anew in the fires of adversity. We knew Carla's cunning meant she would still be looking for ways to minimize the damage, but we were ready. We had faced the worst, and we had not only survived, but we had triumphed. Justice had been served, balance had been restored, and I had reclaimed not just my inheritance, but my dignity, my family, and a powerful new sense of purpose. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.